Welcome in, everybody. Thomas Miller from the Fun Astrology Podcast, and we get a different week of energy this week. We can collectively, all in one together, say, ah. Hopefully it's going to be lighter. Let me show you why. So the first thing is we are seeing nothing on Monday in the sky. There are no direct aspects. So there again, we just get to let this settle in. Sunday's energy was absolutely huge. We had primarily the sun moving into Libra. So we are our second day now into Libra season as we begin this new week. But there's nothing else going on in the sky, so we get to let that settle in. We also had the sun trining Pluto in retrograde. That was a big aspect as the sun left Virgo. So we're just letting all of this gel. There is one theme this week, and that is this little guy right here. When in retrograde, he is known as the trickster. Here, we could say Mercury is the oracle planet because Mercury is still coming up just before the sun, not for long. In fact, when we have the eclipse on October 2nd, that's over. Mercury is gone and probably won't be back in that position for a while. So that's still an influence in the chart this week, as it has been for the last several months. But the main aspects this week happen on Tuesday and Wednesday, and then on Sunday. So let's look at the one on Tuesday to start things off. And that is that Mercury will be in an exact trine, and that occurs at 1:27 p.m. Eastern Time on Tuesday, that these two are going to be in a 120-degree aspect. That blue line that comes through there that I just covered up with a red line, that is a trine aspect, and it's favorable in astrology. And these two are going to be in connection. I want to show you the other one, and then we'll kind of put them together, because on Wednesday, Mercury, see that red line I'm following, will be in an opposition to the planet Neptune. Now, the other thing that we should note, as I know you're looking at it, you're saying, yeah, but I see a big triangle. Yes, you do. You have good eyes. So really, these three are also connected with Pluto sitting up there at 29 degrees Capricorn, where it was when the United States was born, and it is teetering on this 0-degree Aquarius point. And that is obviously the transformation and the whole shift of the culture, generationally, everything that's coming. So this is all tied together. All right, what do we have here? Well, on a personal basis, just for you and me, for this week, the first part of the week's theme is, and this is in effect right now, whenever you're listening to this aspect, all of this is in effect, that Uranus is all about sudden surprises. Inspirations too, like you might get that epiphany, aha, wow. And it's about our hidden genius. It's about the collective. It's large groups of people. It's all of these kinds of things all bundled up in Uranus, which also, by the way, is the ruler of Aquarius, where we're headed for the next 20 years, with Pluto moving through Aquarius beginning in November all the way till 2044. So what we have in a favorable aspect with this trine, which is positive, and also connected with Pluto, which is transformational, let's just stay with that theme of Pluto, that we have this ability to really transform our minds in some kind of surprising way. Like Mercury is all about the thinking rational mind, like I said, the monkey mind. So Uranus, with this favorable aspect over the next couple of days, we can anticipate, we can invite, we can even create some epiphanies, or at least stay in the space where we can be subject to get one. But there's one thing we have to do in order to combine this. So this happens on Tuesday afternoon, basically 1:30 Eastern. But we have this opposition to Neptune. And Neptune, doggone it, that's where we get our inspirations. So, see, that's the conflict in this chart. That's the tension that we have to work through this week. We have this big, beautiful triangle of transformation and inspiration and wonderful thoughts. And Uranus is often said to be the higher vibration, or the higher octave, if you will, of Mercury. So we're talking about these higher thoughts. Mercury is base education, for example, K through 12. And then the ninth house is higher education. Well, same thing here. We have our monkey mind thoughts, the ones that get us through the day. I mean, I'm not saying that that's bad in any kind of way. We have to have that. But then we have these higher octave thoughts, these inspirations, these motivations, these prompts, these elbows in the ribs. One of the clearest ones I ever got was in 2013 when I was getting ready to go on a bicycle ride, and a prompt, I mean, it to me was like a voice. It wasn't audible, but boy was it loud. And it said, email Fred Dodson about narrating his audiobooks. And that turned into a 10-year, 40-book relationship about with all transformational material. It was almost like this triangle exactly playing out what I'm talking about. Here is something that came to mind, Mercury, that was so transformational, inspirational, out of nowhere. I was getting ready to go on a bicycle ride. I wasn't thinking about audiobooks at the time. I was trying to get started in it. Boy, did it ever. And the work was completely transformational. But this one hurdle that we have to clear happens on Wednesday morning early. So that's why this whole triangle here is one big package. It all just is one ball of energy. And that is that the source of our inspirations, Neptune, Pisces, in retrograde, so this is very personal, it brings it in like this is a perfect time to go in and deal with this, is conflicted with that Mercury, which means there could be some fogginess. Or, now here's what I do. I'll tell you exactly what I do. You get an inspiration and you say, okay, thank you. Now, if you don't mind, because I don't want to mess up, I'm going to ask you over and over and over and over and over until we're both tired of it. Would you mind if I just clarified this? And I play with it very playfully with the universe to just say, hey, give me some love here. I'm going to just make sure that I heard this right. And that's because I have in my own chart the sun, which is everything about who I am, on the same degree as Neptune. They are like this. They are joined together. Along with Mars. I call it Mars-Sun-Tune. Mars, the Sun, Neptune. I had to put them together somehow. Mars-Sun-Tune came out, so this is what I've stayed with. But they really are one thing together. And Mars just adds all kinds of strength and power and emphasis and sometimes way too much to the whole party. But with the Sun and Neptune like that together, it's almost kind of like this. A conjunction can be kind of the same energy because a conjunction can make those perceptions so strong that they get confused. The opposition, because of there being tension between our thinking mind and our connection to the home office, our spiritual mind, or that soft little voice inside, might get confused. So what do we do about it? Well, the one thing we do is we just simply set intentions, and this is a time to quiet our mind. So you first of all say, through this week, I am going to hear my highest and best path come through loud and clear. I am going to hear my highest and best path come through loud and clear. Make that an intention. And then quiet your mind, and especially through this week, if you want to play this seriously and full out, and I'm just going to say this, you guys who have been following my stuff for a while know my position on this, but if you have a propensity for alcohol or drugs, this would be a really good week to set that aside. Take a break. Take a retrograde hiatus, if you will. And see if you can set that aside for the week, because that will only cloud and further dampen this line going between Mercury and Neptune. It will make it harder to hear those things, those perceptions. So then, once you've set that intention and you've calmed your mind and you're keeping yourself in a really good state to hear all of this, open it up and watch for the surprises. You might get a, hey, email Fred Dodson while you're getting ready to go on a bicycle ride. Something might come through like that. You might have a phone call. You might have an email. Somebody might reach out. You might have a boom, wow, I should do this. This is a really good time, even with all these planets in retrograde and everything moving backwards and the energy is kind of feeling stuck right now. It's a really good time to be pushing some things forward, especially this week. But the other thing you can also do is just have a spa week. If you've kind of been ground up and you're feeling like last week was super heavy, take a break this week. There is absolutely nothing wrong with just chilling out. That's for sure. Now, there's one other aspect this week that is going to be a theme and a drumbeat through the week, and it happens on Sunday, and you can already see by the degrees 6 and 6 and 5 that the sun and the south node of the moon conjoin, and Mercury is right there with it. So see how Mercury has just been there all along for the whole week, and my desk is going up. This is what I deal with when I forget to set the thing down. So we're just going to go right through it. What I reached over to grab is this book by Carl Payne Toby. This is the guy that came up with the moon wobble. This book was released in 1972. Wasn't he a dapper-looking young man? But this is it. It's Astrology of Inner Space. Has a very creative late 60s, early 70s sexual revolution picture on it there. I don't know where they came up with that. But in here, right in this section, about halfway through, is where he talks about the moon wobble. And it's interesting to hear him discuss this because they were literally trying to find some kind of astrological pattern of why house fires happen. And they thought that it was going to be around eclipses, and it wasn't. It was around this right here. When the sun either conjoins, and then obviously because the nodes of the moon are always opposite each other, one is a conjunction, this time the south node, one is an opposition, the north node. And then also if they were to be in a square aspect, so they would be basically right in here, when the sun, if the sun was up here, then that would be a square to the nodes of the moon, and that also is this same configuration, this pattern that he found. Now, I don't think Carl Payne Toby named it the moon wobble. That happened later. His friend Grant Louie, I think, is the one who gave it the name, and the moon has nothing to do with it. What it is the wobble effect is that things get tilty when the sun gets in these close, tense aspects with the nodes of the moon, which are an intersection point in space. If you're not familiar with it, I'd encourage you to Google it up. We're not going to take time to talk about it here, but the nodes of the moon are these intersection points in space. You can't fly one of Elon's rockets to the nodes of the moon. You won't have a landing. It's a point out in space, basically, where the moon's orbit intersects the ecliptic. So that's the configuration that Grant Louie patterned, or sorry, Carl Payne Toby patterned when he was looking for this, what phenomenon might influence house fires. He found the correlation was here. And then we look at the history of this and things like 9/11 and the Oklahoma City bombing and the USS Cole. And somebody told me something just the other day, but the Hamas attack, all of these things happened during the window before and slightly after what happens on Sunday when the sun hits that south node and north node exactly. So we're going to be watching this through the week and knowing that it's influencing Mercury. How do we handle this aspect? Well, basically, we just use caution if you're playing with this, if you can, and if you can't, you just live your life, basically, setting intentions. I was following this story with this Olivia Newsy and Ryan Lizzie and RFK Jr. In fact, I did a video on it, and I'm going to do a subsequent video on it, because here was not only the influence of the Saturn return, but also Uranus and Saturn and Neptune of lies and deceptions were all intertwined. This is a gnarly story when you get under it. This young reporter was a piece of work, and I think probably drew Mr. Kennedy into her web, from what I'm understanding. So see, that's the kind of thing, but it happened during a moon wobble. It came out during a moon wobble, and obviously there's public damage on several fronts with that. So these are the kinds of things that can happen during the moon wobble. So we just shore up. It's just a little season, and that's the one thing to say tap the brakes on this week, is just to make sure to be cautious around this particular configuration. And really, that's it. So if you just set intentions around this, stay in that really good space of the triangle that we talked about, work through that tension with Neptune and get tuned into the home office, keep the pipeline open, and have a really good spa week of going, ah.